Where's your $5 million? The old man's voice shook the entire shelter hall. Every conversation stopped. Even the crying babies fell silent, as if fear itself had pressed a finger to their lips. The young girl froze. She was holding a plastic tray with 2 slices of bread and watery stew. When the words hit her, her fingers trembled. The tray slipped from her hands and crashed onto the concrete floor. Brown liquid spread around her worn slippers. $5 million. She slowly raised her head. Standing in front of her was a man the world knew well. A man whose face had appeared on television, magazines, and business news for decades. His silver hair was neatly combed. His dark suit looked out of place inside the cracked walls of the shelter. His eyes, sharp and powerful, were now red with something no one expected. Pain, shock, disbelief. He stared at the thin girl before him like he was seeing a ghost. "You were given a trust fund," he said again, his voice lower now but more dangerous. $5 million. Created the day you were born. The girl swallowed hard. "I don't know what you're talking about, sir," she whispered. A sharp breath escaped the old man's chest. His knees buckled slightly, and the security men rushed forward, but he lifted his hand to stop them. "You're alive," he murmured, his voice breaking. "All these years, I thought you were dead." The shelter director stepped forward nervously. "Sir, please, this is a misunderstanding." The old man turned slowly, his face suddenly cold. "This child," he said, pointing at the girl, "is my granddaughter." A loud gasp rippled through the room. The girl's heart began to pound so hard she thought it would burst. Granddaughter? Billionaire? Trust fund? None of it made sense. She had grown up here, slept on thin mattresses, washed clothes by hand, ate when donations came, missed school because there was no money. If she was rich, why had she spent her life hungry? The old man stepped closer. Tears streamed down his face now, openly. "Who stole your life from you?" he asked softly. Before she could answer, a scream echoed from the back of the shelter. "No, this is impossible." A woman pushed through the crowd, her face pale, her eyes wide with terror. The old man looked at her, and his expression changed. That was the moment everything shattered. Backstory. The girl's name was Amara Johnson. She was 17 years old, small for her age, with tired eyes that had seen too much too soon. She had lived at Hope Haven Shelter in Atlanta for as long as she could remember. People told her she arrived there when she was 5, holding a torn backpack and crying for a mother who never came back. No birth certificate, no family, just her name written on a piece of paper and pinned to her shirt. Amara learned early not to ask questions. Life at the shelter was strict but fair. Wake up early, clean, help with younger kids, go to the local public school. When donations covered transport. When they didn't, you stayed back and helped cook or clean. Amara never complained. She believed life was simply like this for her. But sometimes, at night, she had strange dreams. Dreams of a big house with white walls, a garden filled with roses, a woman singing softly while brushing her hair, and a man with deep laughter lifting her into the air. She would wake up with tears on her pillow and no idea why. On the other side of the city lived Harrison Cole, a billionaire, a self-made business tycoon who had built an empire from nothing. Hotels, real estate, tech investments. His name carried weight. But behind the success was a wound that never healed. 20 years ago, his only son, Marcus Cole, died in a car accident. The car exploded after crashing into a bridge barrier. His wife, Evelyn, was said to have died earlier from illness. Their daughter, a small child named Amara, was never found. Authorities assumed she died in the fire. Harrison buried an empty coffin. That night, he created a trust fund, $5 million, locked in Amara's name. He instructed his lawyers that if she was ever found alive, the money would be hers instantly. If not, it would remain untouched. Years passed. Harrison aged. The world moved on. But the money stayed, untouched, until 3 days ago. An alert hit his private financial system. Unauthorized access attempt detected on Amara Cole Trust Fund. Harrison stared at the screen for a long time. Amara, that name, no one should even know existed. Someone was trying to access money meant for a dead child. His hands shook as he ordered a full investigation. The results came back fast. Someone had been withdrawing small amounts from a connected maintenance account for years. Not millions, just enough to stay unnoticed. And the withdrawal address traced back to a shelter donation channel. Hope Haven Shelter. Harrison did not wait. He drove there himself. Back to the present. Amara stood shaking as a woman who screamed earlier pushed forward. She was dressed neatly, but sweat ran down her face. Her eyes darted from the old man to Amara and back. "Sir," the woman said quickly, forcing a smile, "you must be mistaken. This girl is just another abandoned child. We've cared for her out of kindness." Harrison's gaze hardened. "Kindness," he repeated. He turned to Amara again. "Do you remember anything before the shelter?" Amara hesitated. I remember a woman," she said slowly. "She smelled like flowers. She sang to me." The woman stiffened. "And a man," Amara continued. "He called me Little Star." Harrison broke down. "That's what my son called her," he whispered. The shelter director's hands began to shake. Harrison wiped his face and straightened. "For 17 years, he said loudly, this child lived in poverty while $5 million sat untouched in her name." He turned sharply to the staff. "Who brought her here?" No one answered. "I asked a question," he snapped. Finally, the woman spoke again, her voice trembling. "She was dropped off. We didn't know who she was." Harrison stared at her. "You're lying." The room felt heavy. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Bring the files," he said. "All of them." Amara's head spun. Grandfather. Money. Lies. None of it felt real. She looked down at her hands. Scarred from years of work. Thin from missed meals. If she was rich, why did her life look like this? Harrison knelt in front of her, ignoring the floor. "I'm so sorry," he said gently. "I failed you." Amara's voice broke. "If you're my family, why didn't you come sooner?" Harrison had no answer. At that moment, a black SUV pulled up outside. A man in a suit walked in holding a thick brown folder. "Sir," he said quietly, handing it over. Harrison opened it. His face went dark. He looked up at the shelter woman again. "You didn't just hide my granddaughter," he said slowly. "You used her." The woman stepped back. "I can explain." Harrison raised a folder. "These documents show someone forged death records, changed names, redirected minor trust-linked donations into private accounts." The room erupted in whispers. Amara's legs felt weak. "You stole from me?" she asked, her voice barely audible. The woman's mask finally cracked. "You were supposed to be dead," she screamed suddenly. "All of this was supposed to be mine." Gasps filled the air. Harrison stood. "You stole a child's future." Security moved in. But before they could grab her, the woman pointed at Amara and shouted words that made everyone freeze. "She's not the only one." Silence. Harrison's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" he asked. The woman laughed wildly. "You think she's the only rich child you lost? There are others." Amara's heart dropped. "Others? Children like her?" The woman was dragged away screaming. Harrison turned slowly toward Amara, his face filled with horror. "How many lives were destroyed?" he whispered. Amara realized something terrifying. Her story was only the beginning, and the truth was far bigger than her. Before we continue this powerful story, take a moment to ask yourself, what would you have done if you discovered your entire life was a lie? If this story has touched you already, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter. Share this story with someone who loves emotional, life-changing stories like this. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Because in the next chapter, the investigation begins and what they uncover will shock everyone. The shelter did not sleep that night. Police lights flashed outside, painting the cracked walls in red and blue. Children huddled together on mattresses, whispering in fear. Staff members were questioned one by one. Files were pulled from dusty cabinets. Old donation records were copied. Phones rang nonstop. Amara sat on a wooden bench near the office, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Harrison Cole sat beside her, silent. For the first time in her life, Amara was not invisible. People looked at her differently now. Some with pity, some with curiosity, some with jealousy. She felt exposed, like the world had suddenly pulled away the thin blanket she used to hide under. "You don't have to stay here tonight," Harrison said gently. "I can take you somewhere safe." Amara shook her head. "This is all I know," she said. "I don't want to leave until I understand." Harrison nodded slowly. He respected her strength. Across the room, his lead investigator, Daniel Brooks, flipped through documents with a tight jaw. "We found altered intake forms," Daniel said. "Names changed. Dates shifted. The same handwriting appears across multiple files." Harrison's hands curled into fists. "How many children?" he asked. Daniel hesitated. "At least 7, he said quietly. "Possibly more." Amara's chest tightened. 7 lives. 7 children who might have families searching for them. 7 futures stolen quietly, slowly, hidden behind charity smiles and donation boxes. A soft sob escaped her lips. Harrison turned toward her at once. "Amara," he said, his voice heavy with pain, "none of this is your fault." "But I lived it," she replied. "I ate that food. I slept on those floors. While someone used my name to take money." Harrison closed his eyes. 17 years. 17 birthdays missed. School plays never attended. Nights spent wondering if she was safe. "I should have looked harder," he said. "I trusted the reports. I trusted the system." Amara looked up at him. "Why did they say I was dead?" she asked. Daniel answered this time. "Because a dead child doesn't ask questions," he said. "And a missing one attracts attention." The words felt cold and sharp. Outside, rain began to fall. The investigation deepens. By morning, the truth became uglier. The shelter woman, whose name was Linda Moore, had once worked as an assistant in a private adoption agency. Years ago, she had access to confidential family records. She knew which families were wealthy, which children had trust funds, which cases were considered closed. When Amara arrived at the shelter, Linda recognized her face. She recognized the eyes, and she made a decision that would ruin many lives. Instead of reporting Amara, she erased her. She changed records, destroyed links, created new identities, and over time, she learned how to quietly access small connected funds without raising alarms. Not millions, just enough. Enough to live comfortably, enough to feel powerful. She played God, Daniel said, deciding who mattered. Harrison stood up slowly. "Where is she now?" he asked. "In custody," Daniel replied. "She's talking." Amara felt her stomach twist. "What is she saying?" she asked. Daniel looked at her with hesitation. "She claims your father didn't die in the accident," he said. The room went still. Harrison's breath caught. "What?" he whispered. "She says he survived," Daniel continued, "but disappeared." Amara's heart began to race. "My father is alive?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "That's what she claims. We're verifying." Harrison sank back into his seat. All these years, a son mourned, a granddaughter lost, and the truth might have been hidden on purpose. A memory awakens. Later that day, Amara was taken to a quiet room to rest. A counselor sat with her, offering water and calm words. But Amara's mind drifted. She remembered something. A man arguing, a woman crying, a car door slamming, a voice saying, "Take her somewhere safe." Her head throbbed. "Amara?" the counselor asked. "My father," Amara said suddenly. "He told someone protect me." The counselor leaned forward. "That's important," she said. Amara's memories were waking up piece by piece. Harrison listened carefully when she told him. "If Marcus asked someone to hide you," Harrison said, "then someone we trusted betrayed us." The thought was dangerous. It meant the problem wasn't just one woman at a shelter. It meant someone closer, someone powerful, a new threat. That evening, Harrison received a call. "Sir, Daniel said urgently over the phone, "We just got word. Someone tried to move the trust fund again." Harrison's face hardened. "How?" he demanded. "From overseas," Daniel replied, using a fake court order. Amara watched his expression change. "They know she's alive," Harrison said. "Yes," Daniel answered, "and they're scared." That night, Harrison made a decision. Amara would not return to the shelter. She would come with him, for her safety, for the truth. As they prepared to leave, Amara looked back at the place that had been her entire world. It had kept her alive, but it had also kept her trapped. "I don't know who I am without this place," she said softly. "You're Amara," Harrison replied, "and you deserve more." As they stepped into the waiting car, a black sedan slowly pulled away across the street. Someone was watching, and they were not happy. Pause and ask yourself, if you discovered someone erased your identity for profit, what would you do next? If this story is pulling you in, remember to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Share this story with someone who believes truth always finds a way. And tell us in the comments, have you ever seen power abused like this before? Because in the next chapter, Amara enters a world she never imagined, and danger follows her there. The gates of Harrison Cole's estate open slowly. Amara stared through the car window, her mouth slightly open. Tall iron gates, green lawns that looked like carpets, trees lined up like guards. A white mansion stood in the distance, glowing softly under the morning sun. She had seen places like this only on television. Now she was entering one. Her hands trembled as the car rolled forward. "This doesn't feel real," she whispered. Harrison watched her carefully. "You don't have to be afraid," he said. "You're safe here." But Amara did not feel safe. She felt small. The car stopped. Security guards opened the doors. House staff stood quietly, their faces filled with curiosity as Amara stepped out wearing borrowed clothes from the shelter. Her shoes were worn. Her backpack was old. She suddenly felt like she did not belong. Inside, the house was quiet and wide. Every sound echoed. The floor shined. Paintings covered the walls. Amara walked slowly, afraid to touch anything. "This place is bigger than my whole shelter," she said softly. Harrison's chest tightened. "This should have been your home," he replied. "A room full of ghosts." Harrison led her upstairs to a guest room prepared just for her. Soft bed, clean sheets, warm light. Amara sat on the edge of the bed and froze. She had never slept alone before. At the shelter, beds were close together. You could always hear breathing, coughing, whispering. Here, the silence was loud. "I can't sleep here," she said quietly. Harrison paused. "Why?" "It's too quiet," she admitted. "It feels empty." Harrison nodded slowly. "That emptiness," he said, "is something money can't fix." He left her to rest and closed the door gently. Downstairs, the investigation continued. Daniel spread photos and documents across the dining table. "We confirmed it," he said. "Marcus survived the crash." Harrison gripped the table. "Where is he?" Daniel hesitated. "That's the problem. He vanished the same night." Harrison's mind raced. Marcus had enemies, business rivals, people who wanted his money, his influence. And the woman, Harrison said, "Linda." "She's talking more," Daniel replied. "She says Marcus paid someone to hide Amara." "Who?" Harrison demanded. "She won't say yet," Daniel answered. "But she claims the person is still close to you." Harrison's blood ran cold. Close. That meant family. Lawyers. Friends. Someone he trusted. A fractured reunion. Later that evening, Amara explored the house slowly. She stopped in front of a large family portrait. A man and woman stood smiling, holding a little girl with curly hair. Her heart skipped. "That's me," she whispered. She reached out and touched the frame. The memories hit her all at once. Laughter, warm arms, a voice saying, "You're my little star." Her knees buckled, and she slid to the floor, crying silently. Harrison found her there. He knelt beside her without speaking and held her gently. "I remember them now," she sobbed. "Why did they leave me?" They didn't, Harrison said firmly. Someone took you. Amara pulled back slightly. What if my father didn't want me? She asked, fear in her eyes. Harrison held her face carefully. Marcus would have burned the world to protect you. Her tears slowed. A threat revealed. That night, Harrison received another call. They broke into the trust system again. Daniel said urgently. This time, it was almost successful. Who? Harrison asked. We traced the access point, Daniel replied. It came from inside your legal firm. Silence filled the room. My own lawyers? Harrison whispered. Yes, Daniel said. Someone you trusted for years. Harrison closed his eyes. This was bigger than theft. This was betrayal. Amara overheard the conversation. So they're still trying to take it, she said quietly. Yes, Harrison answered. And they won't stop unless exposed. Amara stood straighter. Then don't hide me, she said. Use me. Harrison looked at her sharply. What? Let them know I'm alive, Amara said. Let them panic. Daniel smiled slightly. That might work. A plan formed quickly. The next morning, news broke. A billionaire reunites with granddaughter thought dead for 17 years. The story spread like fire. Phones rang nonstop. And across the city, a man sitting alone in a dark apartment watched the news in shock. That's impossible, he whispered. His hands shook as he reached for his phone. They found her, he said urgently. Everything is falling apart. Back at the mansion, Amara felt something new. Power, but also fear, because she now understood one thing clearly. If people were willing to erase her as a child, they might try to silence her as a young woman. Pause and think about this. If telling the truth put your life in danger, would you still speak out? If this story has kept you hooked, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. Share this story with someone who believes secrets always come to light. And tell us in the comments, what would you do if you discovered your own family betrayed you? Because in the next chapter, the traitor steps closer, and Amara's life is suddenly at risk. The first threat came disguised as kindness. Amara noticed it before anyone else did. It was a small envelope placed neatly on the table beside her breakfast tray. Cream-colored. No stamp. No address. Just her name written in careful, elegant handwriting. Amara froze. She had not given her name to anyone outside the house. She looked around the dining room. Sunlight streamed in through tall windows. Staff moved quietly. Everything looked normal. Too normal. She opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a single folded paper. You should never have come back. Her heart slammed against her chest. She read the sentence again, hoping she had misunderstood. You should never have come back. Her hands began to shake. She stood up quickly and went straight to Harrison's study. He was on the phone when she entered, but one look at her face made him hang up immediately. What is it? He asked. Amara handed him the note. Harrison read it once. Then again, his jaw tightened. They're inside the house, he said quietly. Amara's stomach dropped. Inside? She repeated. Yes, Harrison said. This means someone here helped deliver it. Security was alerted at once. Every staff member was questioned again. Cameras were reviewed, movements tracked, but the envelope did not appear on any footage. It was as if it had simply appeared. Daniel arrived within the hour, his face tense. This confirms it, he said. The person behind this has access, patience, and confidence. And fear, Harrison added. They're scared enough to threaten a child. Amara straightened her shoulders. I'm not a child, she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. I survived the shelter, she continued. I survived being erased. I won't be scared back into silence now. Harrison looked at her with a mix of pride and pain. You shouldn't have to be this strong, he said. But I am, Amara replied, a name from the past. Later that day, Daniel brought new information. We traced the forged court order, he said. The signature belongs to someone named Thomas Reed. Harrison's face darkened instantly. Thomas Reed, he repeated slowly. Amara looked between them. Who is he? My former legal advisor, Harrison said. He handled Marcus's estate after the accident. Daniel nodded. And he's been quietly connected to several shell companies that receive money linked to the trust. Harrison sank into his chair. I trusted him, he said. Most people did, Daniel replied. That's how he stayed invisible. Amara felt anger rise inside her. So he knew I was alive, she said, and did nothing. He likely helped hide you, Daniel said, and made sure no one ever looked. Amara clenched her fists. That means he watched me grow up poor, she said. And he didn't care. A visit unannounced. That evening, the gate intercom buzzed. A man is here to see you, security said. Claims to be an old friend. Harrison's eyes narrowed. Name? Thomas Reed. Silence filled the room. He came himself, Daniel said softly. That's bold. Harrison stood slowly. Or desperate, he replied. Against advice, Harrison agreed to see him, but not alone. Amara insisted on being present. I want to see his face, she said. Thomas Reed walked into the living room with a calm smile. He was well-dressed, confident, silver hair like Harrison, but with colder eyes. Henry, he said warmly, it's been too long. Harrison did not return the smile. You're bold to come here, he said. Thomas's gaze shifted to Amara. His smile faltered for half a second. Just enough. So, Thomas said lightly, the rumors are true. Amara met his eyes. You knew, she said. Didn't you? Thomas sighed and spread his hands. I knew you were alive, he admitted, but not where. That's a lie, Harrison snapped. Thomas's calm cracked slightly. I did what I thought was best, he said. The world you came from is dangerous. Money ruins people. So you ruined my life instead? Amara asked. Thomas looked away. I protected the fortune, he said. Someone had to. Harrison stepped forward, his voice shaking with rage. You stole from a child, he said, and hid behind excuses. Thomas straightened. Be careful, he warned. This story is bigger than you think. That was when Amara noticed it. Fear, not for himself, for something else. What are you afraid of? She asked quietly. Thomas looked at her sharply. You don't know what you're walking into, he said. Then tell me, Amara replied. Thomas said nothing. Security escorted him out. As the doors closed, Daniel exhaled slowly. He didn't deny it, he said, but he didn't act alone. Amara felt a chill. If Thomas Reed was only part of it, who else was involved? That night, Amara lay awake in her new bed. The silence no longer felt peaceful. It felt dangerous. Somewhere in the city, phones rang. Meetings were called. Secrets shifted. Because the girl who was supposed to be dead was alive. And she was asking questions. And someone, somewhere, was deciding how far they were willing to go to make her disappear again. The attempt came before dawn. Amara woke to the sound of glass breaking. For half a second, she thought she was back at the shelter. Someone fighting, a window shattered, chaos rushing in. Her body moved before her mind did. She rolled off the bed and crouched low, her heart pounding. Then the alarm screamed. Red lights flashed in the hallway. Heavy footsteps thundered outside her door. Amara. Harrison's voice boomed. Stay where you are. Her door burst open as security rushed in, weapons raised, faces tight with focus. Someone breached the West Wing. A guard shouted. Windows smashed. Motion sensors triggered. Amara's legs shook as she stood. Were they coming for me? She asked. Harrison appeared in the doorway, his face pale with fury. Yes, he said simply. They were. Minutes later, the intruder was caught near the garden fence. A man in dark clothing. No phone, no ID, just gloves and a small device designed to disable alarms. A professional. Daniel arrived quickly, his voice low as he spoke to Harrison. He won't talk, Daniel said, but this wasn't random. He knew exactly where her room was. Amara hugged her arms around herself. They know the house, she said. They know me. Harrison looked at her, guilt heavy in his eyes. I brought you into danger, he said. No, Amara replied firmly. The danger followed me. There's a difference. A dangerous truth. The intruder was taken away. The house fell silent again, but nothing felt the same. Breakfast went untouched. Later that morning, Daniel returned with news that made the room feel smaller. "We confirmed it," he said. "Thomas Reed didn't act alone. There's a second name tied to the shell accounts." Harrison leaned forward. "Who?" Daniel hesitated. "Elaine Cole." The air vanished from the room. Amara looked between them. "Who is that?" Harrison's voice came out strained. "My sister." The truth landed hard. She helped raise Marcus. Harrison continued slowly. She had access to everything. Legal files, trust documents, family records. Amara felt her chest tighten. "So my own family helped erase me," she said. Daniel nodded. "She benefited quietly. Offshore accounts, investments, clean money on paper." Harrison stood abruptly and walked to the window, his back stiff. "She told me to let go," he said bitterly. "Said searching for you was destroying me." Amara's eyes burned. "And all this time," she whispered, "she was stealing from me." A memory breaks free. That afternoon, Amara sat alone in the library. She ran her fingers over the spines of old books, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Then it hit her, a memory, a woman's voice. Cold, sharp. "If you speak, he'll never find you." Amara gasped. She remembered being 5 years old, sitting in a car, crying, a woman in the front seat turning around, her eyes hard. Was it her? Amara whispered to herself. Her stomach twisted. She ran to Harrison. "I remember," she said breathlessly. "A woman threatened me. She told me not to speak." Harrison's face fell. "It was Elaine," he said. The pieces fit too well. The threat tightens. That evening, another message arrived. This time, it was not a note. It was a video. Daniel played it on the screen. The image was dark, grainy. A distorted voice spoke. "End this investigation," it said, "or the girl disappears again." Amara did not look away. "I won't run," she said calmly. Harrison turned to her sharply. "This is no longer just theft," he said. "This is life and death." Amara met his gaze. "I already lost my life once," she said. "I'm not letting them steal it again." Daniel nodded slowly. "Then we stop hiding," he said. "We go public. Fully." Harrison hesitated. "They'll come harder," he warned. Amara's voice was steady. "Let them. The truth is louder." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Storm clouds gathered. And somewhere, someone who believed Amara should have stayed lost was preparing their next move, because the past was no longer buried, and the fight for her future had truly begun. The press conference changed everything. Cameras lined the entrance of the Cole Foundation building. Reporters shouted questions. Microphones were pushed forward like weapons. The story that had begun as a quiet investigation was now a national storm. Harrison stood at the podium, his face firm but worn. Beside him stood Amara. For the first time, she was not hiding. She wore a simple dress, her hair neatly pulled back, her posture straight. She did not look like a victim. She looked like truth. "My granddaughter was declared dead 17 years ago," Harrison began. That declaration was a lie. A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. "She was hidden, erased, and exploited," he continued. "While funds meant for her care were stolen by people we trusted." Amara felt her heart race, but she stayed steady. Harrison gestured toward her. "This is Amara," he said. "And she is alive." Cameras flashed wildly. Questions exploded. Who stole the money? Was family involved? Is she safe now? Harrison raised his hand. "The investigation is ongoing," he said, "but those responsible will be exposed." Amara stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but it carried. "I grew up believing I was alone," she said. "If this can happen to me, it can happen to other children too." Silence followed, and then applause. The fallout, within hours, the reaction was fierce. Social media erupted. Hashtags trended. Donations poured into shelters across the country. Old cases were reopened. Parents came forward with questions they had buried for years. But not everyone was cheering. Daniel arrived that night with grim news. Elaine Cole has disappeared, he said. Harrison's blood ran cold. She knew this was coming, Daniel continued. She cleared out her accounts 2 days ago. Amara's stomach tightened. She's running, she said. Yes, Daniel replied. And she's dangerous. A hard lesson. That night, Harrison sat with Amara in the study. I should have protected you, he said quietly. Not just with money, with presence. Amara looked at him. You're here now, she said. That matters. Harrison swallowed hard. I don't know how to be a grandfather, he admitted. Amara smiled faintly. I don't know how to be a granddaughter, she said. They shared a quiet laugh, the first since the chaos began. But peace did not last. A warning too late. Near midnight, the power went out. The house plunged into darkness. Backup lights flickered on, but something felt wrong. Security breach. A voice crackled over the intercom. Amara's heart dropped. Harrison grabbed her hand. We're moving, he said. They rushed down the hallway as alarms blared again. From the shadows, a voice spoke. You should have stayed hidden. Amara froze. The voice was female. Cold. Familiar. Elaine. Harrison stepped in front of Amara instinctively. Show yourself, he demanded. A figure stepped into the emergency light. Elaine Cole's face was calm, almost sad. You ruined everything, she said softly. Amara stared at her. You ruined my life, Amara replied. Elaine's eyes flicked toward her. I saved you, she said, from a world that eats its own. You fed on me, Amara said. Elaine's calm shattered. This money was never yours, she snapped. It was family money. Harrison's voice thundered. You stole from a child. Elaine laughed bitterly. Look at her, she said. She survived. She's strong. You should thank me. Sirens wailed in the distance. Elaine's expression changed. She stepped back into the darkness. This isn't over, she said. Not yet. Then she vanished. Security arrived moments later. But Elaine was gone. Amara's hand shook. She was right here, she whispered. Harrison held her tightly. She won't win, he said. But deep down he knew the truth. Elaine had crossed a line. And people who cross lines like that do not stop easily. The war for Amara's future had just turned personal. The house felt different after Elaine disappeared. Not quieter, sharper. Every sound felt suspicious. Every shadow seemed to move on its own. Amara noticed how security doubled, how doors locked automatically, how Harrison checked exits without realizing he was doing it. Elaine had not just threatened them. She had invaded their sense of safety. The next morning, Daniel arrived early, his face tight. We confirmed Elaine didn't come alone, he said. She had help inside the security grid. Harrison closed his eyes briefly. Another traitor, he said. Yes, Daniel replied. But not family this time. Amara sat up straighter. Then who? Daniel placed a tablet on the table and turned it toward them. A private security contractor, he said. One who's been quietly replacing systems over the past year. Harrison's jaw clenched. Elaine planned this long before I found Amara. Daniel nodded. She prepared for the day the truth came out. Amara felt a cold realization sink in. This isn't about the money anymore, she said. It's about control. Daniel looked at her carefully. You're learning fast. A target beyond the mansion. Later that day, Amara insisted on leaving the house. I can't live locked behind gates, she said. That's another kind of prison. Harrison hesitated, but finally agreed, with heavy security. They drove to a community center downtown, where Amara had once volunteered to the shelter. The building was old but warm, filled with laughter and noise. Children recognized her immediately. Amara, they called. She smiled for the first time in days. For a moment, she felt normal again. Then Daniel's voice crackled through the earpiece. Movement across the street, he said quietly. Black SUV, tinted windows. Amara's smile faded. Harrison's hand tightened slightly on her shoulder. Stay calm, he murmured. The SUV did not move. It just watched. They left minutes later. But the message was clear. Elaine could reach her anywhere. A truth from the shadows. That evening, Daniel brought another update. "We found Marcus," he said. The words hit like thunder. Harrison stood up so fast his chair fell backward. "What?" he breathed. "He's alive," Daniel confirmed. "Living under another name. Off the grid." Amara's heart began to pound. "My father," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "And he's been hiding for a reason. Why didn't he come for her?" Harrison demanded. Daniel's expression darkened. "Because someone threatened him," he said. "They told him if he ever reached out, Amara would disappear forever." Silence filled the room. Amara felt tears sting her eyes. "He stayed away to protect me," she said softly. "Yes," Daniel replied. "And now he wants to meet her." Harrison turned to Amara. "This should be your choice," he said gently. Amara took a deep breath. "I've waited my whole life," she said. "I won't wait anymore." A meeting too soon. The meeting was arranged in secret at a small lakeside cabin far from city. Night fell quickly. The air was cold. Amara stepped out of the car slowly, her heart racing. The cabin door opened. A man stepped out, older than she imagined, thinner, his hair touched with gray, his eyes tired but warm. They locked eyes. For a moment, no one moved. Then Amara whispered, "Daddy?" The man's face broke. He crossed the space between them and fell to his knees. "I'm so sorry," he sobbed. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there." Amara collapsed into his arms, crying harder than she ever had. Harrison watched from a distance, tears streaming freely. For one brief moment, the world felt right. Then a sound shattered it. A click. Daniel's hand flew to his weapon. "Sniper," he hissed. The lake erupted as a bullet hit the water inches from the cabin. "Move!" Daniel shouted. Chaos exploded. Marcus grabbed Amara and pulled her down. Harrison was pushed behind cover. Another shot rang out, and another. Amara's heart thundered. Elaine had found them, and this time she wasn't sending warnings. She was trying to end the story for good. They escaped by seconds. Daniel dragged Amara across the wooden floor as bullets tore through the cabin walls. Glass shattered, wood splintered. The peaceful lake turned into a place of terror. "Stay down," Daniel shouted. Marcus shielded Amara with his body, his arms wrapped around her like he was afraid she might vanish again. "I've got you," he whispered desperately. "I won't let them take you." Harrison was forced toward the back exit by security. His heart pounded not from fear for himself, but from the sight of his son and granddaughter lying in the dirt under gunfire. This was his nightmare coming back to life. They burst out the rear door and ran into the trees. Flashlights sliced through the darkness. The sound of footsteps and shouted commands echoed behind them. Elaine had not come alone. They reached the vehicles just as another shot rang out. A guard cried out and fell. The rest returned fire long enough for the engines to roar to life. The car sped away down the narrow dirt road, tires skidding, branches slapping against the windows. Amara pressed her face into Marcus's chest, shaking. "I thought I lost you again," he said hoarsely. "You didn't," she replied. "I'm here." But even as she spoke, she understood something had changed forever. This was no longer about secrets. It was about survival. The truth comes out. They were taken to a secure location far outside the city. Phones were confiscated. No windows. No names spoken aloud. Daniel addressed them with a grave expression. "That wasn't a warning," he said. "That was an execution attempt." Harrison slammed his fist against the table. "My own sister tried to have my family killed." Daniel nodded. "And now we respond differently." Amara looked up. "How?" "We expose everything," Daniel said. "All at once. No more half-truths." Marcus spoke for the first time since the attack. "Elaine doesn't just want the money," he said quietly. "She wants control of the legacy. If Amara exists, she loses everything." Harrison turned to him. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked, pain in his voice. Marcus swallowed. "Because she threatened Amara when she was 5, he said. "She told me if I ever came near you again, she'd erase her completely." Silence followed. Amara reached for his hand. "You protected me the only way you could," she said. Marcus broke down. A new decision. That night, Amara could not sleep. She sat alone, staring at a reflection in the dark window. She thought of the shelter, the children still there, the other names Daniel mentioned, the ones who might never be found. She stood and walked to Harrison. "I want the trust fund open publicly," she said. Harrison frowned. "That will make you a bigger target." "I know," Amar replied, "but it will also make it harder to silence me." Daniel nodded slowly. "She's right. Darkness protects predators." Harrison studied her for a long moment. "You're braver than I ever was," he said. The trap is set. The next morning, an announcement was prepared. The Cold Trust Fund would be officially activated, audited, publicly overseen, and Amara would appear before a federal panel to testify about everything she knew. News spread fast. Too fast. By evening, Daniel received confirmation. Elaine had taken the bait. "She's moving," he said, "trying to shut this down before it's permanent." Amara felt fear rise, but also something stronger, resolve. "If she comes for me," Amara said, "she comes into the light." Daniel looked at her with respect. "You've turned from prey into a witness," he said. Outside, storms rolled in again. Elaine Cole was running out of time, and people who are cornered make the most dangerous choices of all. The courtroom was silent, so silent that Amara could hear her own breathing. She sat at the long wooden table, hands folded neatly, shoulders straight. Cameras were not allowed inside, but she knew the world was waiting outside those walls. News trucks, reporters, strangers arguing about her life as if it were a movie. Across the room, Elaine's chair was empty. For now, Harrison sat behind Amara, his presence steady. Marcus sat beside him, his face drawn, eyes fixed on the door like he expected it to burst open at any moment. Daniel stood near the wall, arms crossed. "This is your moment," he had told her earlier. "Speak clearly. Speak truthfully. Don't let fear rush you." Now the judge entered. Everyone stood. The hearing began. Amara's voice shook at first. "I was told I had no family," she said. "I was told no one wanted me." She paused, swallowing hard. "I lived in a shelter for most of my life. I missed school. I went hungry. I watched other children get adopted while I stayed behind." The judge listened carefully. "Did anyone ever explain why?" he asked. Amara shook her head. "No," she said, "but someone always made sure I stayed invisible." She described the threats, the forged records, the memories returning in pieces, the woman who warned her to stay silent. Elaine's name was spoken aloud. The air shifted. Marcus testified next. He spoke of the accident, the survival, the threats that followed. "She told me if I ever returned to my father," Marcus said, his voice breaking, "my daughter would vanish." The judge leaned forward. "And you believed her?" "Yes," Marcus replied, "because she already had." The hearing lasted hours. By the end, there was no doubt. Criminal charges were approved. Arrest warrants signed. The trap closes. That night, Daniel received a call. "They found Elaine," he said. Harrison looked up sharply. "Where?" "Trying to leave the country," Daniel replied. "Private airstrip." Amara's heart pounded. "Did they stop her?" she asked. "Yes," Daniel said. "But she asked for one thing." "What?" Harrison demanded. "To see Amara," Daniel replied. Silence fell. "No," Harrison said immediately. "Absolutely not." Amara stood slowly. "Yes," she said. Everyone turned to her. "She's been controlling my life since I was 5, Amara said calmly. "I won't let her control how this ends." The meeting was arranged under strict security. Elaine sat across from Amara in a small room. Her confident mask cracked at last. "You could have had everything quietly," Elaine said bitterly. "Why expose us all?" Amara met her gaze. "Because children aren't property," she said, "and money doesn't excuse cruelty." Elaine laughed weakly. "You think this ends with me?" she asked. "There are others like me." Amara leaned forward slightly. Then this is how it starts ending, she replied. Elaine's eyes filled with rage. You owe me, she hissed. Amara shook her head. No, she said. You owe the world an apology. Guards entered. Elaine was taken away in cuffs. For the first time, she looked small. The aftershock. The arrest did not stop with Elaine. Records led to more names, more shelters, more stolen identities. Families were reunited. Others learned painful truths too late. Amara watched it all unfold from a distance, emotions tangled. One evening, she sat on the steps outside the mansion with Marcus. I don't know how to live without fear, she admitted. Marcus nodded. Neither do I, he said. But we'll learn. Harrison joined them, holding a file. The trust fund is officially yours, he said. Every dollar. Amara looked at the folder, then pushed it back gently. I don't want it yet, she said. Harrison frowned. Why? Because my life isn't about money, Amara replied. It's about making sure no one else grows up like I did. Harrison's eyes filled with tears. That night, as Amara lay in bed, she realized something important. She was no longer running. But the hardest part was still ahead, learning how to live a life that was finally her own. The quiet after the storm felt strange. For weeks, Amara had lived on adrenaline. Threats, meetings, courtrooms, fear sitting beside her like a shadow. Now, suddenly, there were no urgent calls, no alarms, no whispers behind closed doors. Elaine Cole was in custody. The network she helped build was collapsing piece by piece. And Amara was safe. At least, that's what everyone said. But safety felt unfamiliar. Amara stood at the window of her room, watching the early morning light spill over the gardens. Birds moved freely, unaware of court cases or stolen lives. She wondered what it felt like to wake up every day without looking over your shoulder. You're up early, Harrison said gently from the doorway. Amara turned. I couldn't sleep, she admitted. Harrison nodded. Neither could I, when everything finally went quiet. He walked in and sat across from her. There's something we need to talk about, he said. Amara's chest tightened slightly. What is it? Harrison took a breath. The press, the foundations, the lawyers. They all want to know what comes next for you. Amara looked down at her hands. I don't know, she said honestly. I've spent my whole life surviving. No one taught me how to plan. Harrison's voice softened. Then we'll learn together. A choice, not an order. Later that day, Amara sat with Daniel and Marcus in the study. We've secured protection for you long-term, Daniel said. School options, counseling, a public education plan if you want to speak out, or privacy if you don't. Marcus leaned forward. You don't owe anyone anything, he said. Not explanations, not forgiveness. Amara listened quietly. Then she surprised them. I want to go back to the shelter, she said. Silence. Harrison's face went pale. Amara, not to live there, she added quickly. To visit. Marcus frowned. Why? Because there are kids there who think no one sees them. Amara said, I was one of them. I don't want to disappear again, this time into comfort. Daniel studied her carefully. That would draw attention, he warned. I know, Amara replied, but hiding never protected me. The return, the visit was quiet. No cameras, no announcements. Just Amara walking back into Hope Haven's shelter with Harrison and Marcus beside her. Some of the children recognized her immediately. Amara, they shouted, running toward her. She knelt and hugged them tightly. The building looked the same. The walls still cracked. The beds still closed together. But something had changed. Hope. Amara met with the new shelter director, a woman appointed after the investigation. I want to help, Amara said simply. Not as a donor, as someone who understands. The woman nodded, tears in her eyes. You already are, she said. A new fear. That night, back at the mansion, Amara felt something she hadn't felt in a while. Fear, not of danger, of the future. She sat with Marcus in the garden. What if I fail? She asked quietly. What if I don't know how to live this life? Marcus looked at her gently. I failed you once, he said, and I'm still standing. Failure isn't the end. Amara leaned her head against his shoulder. For the first time, the fear didn't feel crushing. It felt human. A letter from the past. 2 days later, a letter arrived. Not a threat, not legal paperwork. A letter addressed to Amara, written in shaky handwriting. It was from Elaine. Amara's hands trembled as she read it. The letter was not an apology. It was a confession. Elaine admitted everything. The jealousy, the greed, the fear of losing control. She admitted she never thought Amara would survive the shelter. The final line made Amara's breath catch. I thought erasing you would erase my guilt. I was wrong. Amara folded the letter slowly. She did not cry. She felt something else. Release. She handed the letter to Harrison. I don't forgive her, Amara said quietly. But I won't carry her poison anymore. Harrison nodded. That's freedom, he said. That night, Amara slept deeply. No dreams. No shadows. Just rest. But while one chapter of her life was closing, another was opening. One that would test her in ways no courtroom ever could. Because healing, she was about to learn, is its own kind of battle. The first day of school terrified Amara more than the courtroom ever had. Not because of danger, but because of normal life. The private academy Harrison suggested was kind, careful, and prepared. Too prepared. Teachers spoke gently. Counselors smiled too much, and students whispered when she walked by. She felt seen in the wrong way. At lunch, Amara sat alone, picking at her food. She heard pieces of conversation float past. That's her, the shelter girl, the billionaire's granddaughter. Her chest tightened. She had wanted a future, not a label. That evening, she came home unusually quiet. Harrison noticed immediately. Did something happen? He asked. Amara hesitated. I don't know how to be normal, she said. Everyone is either careful or curious. No one is just real. Harrison nodded slowly. When people don't understand your pain, they stare at it, he said. It takes time before they learn to see you instead. Marcus joined them, sitting across from Amara. You don't have to prove anything, he said. Not strength, not gratitude. Amara exhaled slowly. I keep waiting for something bad to happen, she admitted. Like my body doesn't trust peace. Marcus's eyes softened. That's called surviving, he said. It doesn't disappear overnight. The weight of choice. A week later, the offers began to arrive. Speaking invitations. Interviews. Foundations wanting her name attached. People wanted her story. Harrison placed a stack of letters on the table. These are opportunities, he said carefully, but none of them are obligations. Amara flipped through the envelopes slowly. Each one promised change. Each one demanded exposure. What if I say yes too soon? She asked. What if I lose myself again, this time to expectations? Daniel, who had joined them, spoke quietly. Power doesn't come from being visible, he said. It comes from choosing when to be. Amara closed envelopes. I want to start small, she said. Quiet. Harrison smiled faintly. Then, quiet it is. A call from the shelter. 2 days later, the shelter called. A boy had gone missing. 13 years old. No records. No family listed. Amara felt her chest tighten the moment she heard. I want to help find him, she said without hesitation. Harrison frowned. This could reopen wounds. It already did, Amara replied, the moment he disappeared. The search was organized quickly. Flyers, community alerts, volunteers. Amara insisted on joining. They found the boy that night, hiding under a bridge, scared and hungry. When Amara crouched in front of him, he looked at her with wide eyes. They said nobody would come, he whispered. I came, Amara said softly. As they drove him back, something shifted inside her. This wasn't charity. This was purpose, a quiet decision. That night, Amara sat alone in her room, writing in a notebook. Not speeches, not plans, just thoughts. She wrote about fear, about anger, about the shelter. about the children who still believed they didn't matter. When she finished, she realized her hands were no longer shaking. The next morning, she went to Harrison. "I've decided something," she said. He looked up. "Tell me." "I want to create a fund," Amara said. "Not just for shelters. For children whose identities were erased. For legal help. For finding families." Harrison's breath caught. "You'd use your trust fund?" he asked. Amara nodded. "That money represents what was stolen from me. I want it to become what protects others." Harrison stood and hugged her tightly. "Your parents will be proud," he whispered. Amara closed her eyes. For the first time, she believed it. But even as she stepped forward into purpose, unseen forces were shifting again. Because when money changes direction and power moves hands, not everyone is ready to let go. And someone, watching quietly from the edges, was already planning the next test of Amara's resolve. The first sign of trouble came disguised as praise. The media called Amara brave, visionary, a symbol of hope. Articles praised her decision to use her trust fund to protect children like her. Donations poured in. Emails arrived daily from parents, lawyers, and social workers asking for help. But Daniel noticed something else. "Too many people are suddenly interested," he said one evening, tapping his tablet. "Some of them don't make sense." Amara looked up from the paperwork spread across the dining table. "What do you mean?" "Fake nonprofits," Daniel replied. "New organizations created overnight. They're using your name to request meetings." Harrison frowned. "People trying to ride her story. Or steal from it," Daniel added. Amara felt a familiar chill. "They're coming back," she said quietly. Not with threats, with smiles. A new foundation, old tricks. The Amara Trust was launched quietly, just as she wanted. No big stage. No cameras. Just a legal structure focused on tracing erased identities, funding investigations, and supporting children who had fallen through the cracks. Within weeks, the impact was real. 2 families reunited. 1 falsified death record reversed. A teenage girl removed from an illegal guardianship. Amara felt hope grow, but so did pressure. One afternoon, a man named Victor Hale requested a meeting. He represented a child advocacy coalition and praised Amara's work passionately. "You're changing the system," he said smoothly. "But you're young. You need experienced partners." Daniel watched him closely. Victor slid a folder across the table. "Let's manage the financial side," he said. "You focus on heart." Amara did not touch the folder. "Who funds you?" she asked. Victor smiled. "Private donors." "Which ones?" Amara pressed. The smile thinned. Daniel leaned forward. "We'll verify." Victor stood. "Of course," he said. "But opportunities like this don't wait forever." After he left, Daniel exhaled sharply. "He's connected to Elaine's old network," he said. Indirectly, but enough to matter. Amara felt anger flare. "They don't see children," she said. "They see money." Harrison nodded. "And control." A crack in the armor. That night, exhaustion finally caught up with Amara. She snapped at Marcus over something small. Later, she cried alone in her room, frustrated with herself. She had survived worse than this. So why did it feel heavier now? Marcus found her sitting on the floor. "You don't have to be strong every day," he said gently. "If I stop," Amara replied, "I'm afraid everything will fall apart." Marcus sat beside her. "It won't," he said. "But you might, and that matters more." His words stayed with her. The warning. 2 days later, Daniel brought troubling news. "Victor Hale filed a complaint," he said. "Claims your foundation rejected partnership unfairly." Harrison scoffed. "That won't stand." Daniel shook his head. "That's not the point. He's creating noise, slowing things down, distracting us." Amara's stomach tightened. "He's trying to wear us out," she said. "Yes," Daniel replied, "and he won't be the last." That evening, Amara received a message on a secure line. No name, just words. "You can't save them all. Step aside." Her hands went cold. She showed Daniel immediately. This is different, he said. It's not fear-based. It's a warning. Amara stared at the screen. They're testing me, she said, to see if I'll retreat. Daniel met her gaze. Will you? Amara thought of the boy under the bridge, the shelter beds, the years she was told she didn't exist. No, she said. I won't. But as she spoke, she understood something deeply. This fight was no longer about her past. It was about the future she was trying to protect. And in the shadows, people who thrived on silence were beginning to realize Amara Johnson was not going to be silenced again, which meant the next move would not be polite. It would be personal. The attack did not come through the courts. It came through Amara's name. She noticed it first in a comment under a small local news article about the foundation. She's lying. At first, she ignored it. One comment meant nothing. People always talked. But then another appeared. My cousin was at that shelter. This story doesn't add up. Then another. Funny how she waited until money showed up. Amara's chest tightened. By the end of the week, the whispers had turned into headlines. Questions rise about Billionaire's lost granddaughter. Online sleuths dig into Amara trust claims. Daniel slammed his tablet down on the table. This is coordinated, he said. Fake accounts. Paid narratives. They're planting doubt. Harrison's face darkened. They couldn't stop us legally, so now they're trying to poison public trust. Amara sat quietly, scrolling through the messages. Some were cruel. Some were mocking. Some accused her of stealing money meant for real causes. One message made her hands shake. You should have stayed invisible. She dropped the phone. I thought the truth would be enough, she said softly. Daniel's voice was firm. Truth works slowly. Lies spread fast. The smear grows. Within days, donors began to hesitate. Meetings were canceled. A state audit was announced, not because of wrongdoing, but because of public concern. Victor Hale's name surfaced again, quoted as saying transparency was important when emotions run high. Amara recognized the pattern. This was the same trick. Create doubt. Create delay. Then take control. Marcus paced the room. They're attacking her character because they can't attack the facts. Amara looked up. Then maybe I should step back, she said. If I'm the distraction. Harrison cut her off sharply. No, he said. That's exactly what they want. Amara flinched slightly. Harrison softened his tone. They erased you once by hiding you, he said. Now they want to erase you by discrediting you. We won't let that happen. A breaking point. The pressure built quietly but steadily. Amara stopped sleeping well. She reread emails too many times. Questioned every decision. Wondered if helping had only made things worse. One evening, she overheard two staff members whispering in the hallway. Maybe it's too much for her. She's still just a kid. The words hit harder than the threats. That night, Amara packed a small bag. Not to run, just to breathe. She left a note for Harrison and Marcus and drove alone to the old shelter. Hope Haven was quieter than she remembered. She sat on the steps where she used to wait for dinner calls. For the first time in weeks, she cried freely. I didn't ask for this, she whispered into the empty air. I just wanted it to stop happening to others. A voice spoke behind her. It won't stop if you leave. Amara turned sharply. The new shelter director stood there, arms folded gently. I saw the news, the woman continued. They're attacking you. Amara nodded. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this part. The director sat beside her. When you lived here, she said, you survived because you adapted, not because you were fearless. Strength isn't about not breaking. It's about choosing what you stand up for after you break. Amara wiped her face. They're trying to turn my story against me. The director nodded. Then own it fully. A choice made public. The next morning, Amara called Daniel. I want to speak, she said. Not through statements. Not through lawyers. As myself. Daniel paused. That will open you up to more scrutiny. I know, Amara replied, but silence is costing more. A live interview was arranged. No script. No filters. Just Amara, sitting plainly, looking into the camera. She did not defend her wealth. She did not list achievements. She spoke about hunger, about waiting, about being told she didn't exist. "I'm not perfect," she said calmly. "I'm learning. I make mistakes. But the children we help are real. Their records are real. Their pain is real." She paused. "If you don't trust me," she continued, "then don't trust my name. Trust the work. Follow the cases. Talk to the families." The interview ended. The response was immediate. Messages shifted. Survivors came forward. Former shelter residents spoke up. One by one, people said, "I believe her." But not everyone backed down. That night, Daniel received another update. "Victor Hale is escalating," he said. "He's pushing for emergency oversight of the trust." Harrison clenched his jaw. He wants control. Amara stood straighter. "Then we stopped playing defense," she said. "How?" Marcus asked. Amara looked at them, her eyes steady. "We expose a pattern," she said. "Not just what they did to me, but how they keep doing it to others." Daniel nodded slowly. "That will shake more than one powerful person," he warned. Amara took a breath. "Good," she said. "Let it." Because the lie that tried to erase her had evolved. And now, in Chapter 13 of her life, Amara was no longer just surviving the storm. She was about to aim straight at its source. The report landed like an earthquake. Daniel called it the pattern file. Amara called it the truth, finally lined up. It was not a single accusation or a personal story. It was a map, names, dates, shelters, law firms, quiet guardianships, trust funds that never reached the children they were created for, cases that had been closed too neatly, children declared dead without bodies, others renamed, relocated, or buried under paperwork until they disappeared. Victor Hale's name appeared more than once. So did others, bankers, consultants, nonprofit executives, people who stood on stages talking about charity while feeding off silence. "This isn't just about me," Amara said quietly as she read the file late into the night. "This is an industry." Daniel nodded. "A hidden one, built on the belief that poor children don't have voices." Harrison stood behind them, his hands gripping the back of a chair. "And now," he asked. "Now," Daniel said, "we release it." Amara felt her stomach tighten. Once this went public, there would be no turning back. No quiet settlements. No polite denials. The people named here would fight back with everything they had. Money, influence, fear. Marcus looked at Amara. "This will make you a target again," he said gently. Amara met his eyes. "I already am," she replied. "The difference is this time I won't be alone." The release. The pattern file went live at dawn. Independent journalists, federal investigators, child advocacy groups. They all received it at once. By noon, everything exploded. Search warrants were issued in 3 states. 2 nonprofit boards resigned within hours. A prominent foundation froze its accounts pending review. Victor Hale disappeared from public view. By evening, his offices were raided. Amara watched the news coverage from the study, her hands clasped tightly together. People were finally asking the right questions. Not is she lying? But how did this go on for so long? The calls started coming in. Parents, former shelter residents, adults who had grown up feeling like something about their past never made sense. The foundation's phone line stayed open all night. Amara listened to one voicemail after another, her heart heavy but steady. "You saved my brother. I thought I was crazy for remembering things differently. I didn't know anyone would believe me." She closed her eyes. This was why she had stayed. The cost of truth. But truth always comes with a price. That night, Harrison received a call from his bank. Certain assets are being reviewed, the voice said carefully. Out of caution. Marcus was followed home from the grocery store. Daniel intercepted a message meant for Amara, sent through an anonymous channel. "You cross a line. This won't end clean." Amara read it without flinching. "It never does," she said quietly. Exhaustion finally caught her. She sat alone in the dark living room, staring at nothing, feeling the weight of every life tangled in this fight. What if the system crushed her before it changed? What if the backlash hurt the very children she was trying to protect? Harrison found her there. "You're thinking about stopping," he said softly. "I'm thinking about the cost," Amara replied. "Not to me, to everyone else." Harrison sat beside her. "When I built my fortune," he said, "I learned something the hard way. You can't change a broken system without breaking a few powerful comforts. People will call you reckless, ungrateful, dangerous." He looked at her. "That's how you know you're doing it right." Amara swallowed. "I don't want to become hard," she said. "I don't want to lose the part of me that still feels." Harrison smiled sadly. "You won't. The people who lose that part never had to fight for it." A door opens. Just before midnight, Daniel rushed in, his face lit with urgency. "They found the rest of them," he said. "The offshore accounts, the middlemen, the records that connect everything." Amara stood slowly. "So it's over?" she asked. Daniel shook his head. "No," he said, "but it's irreversible now." In the distance, sirens wailed, not in fear, in motion. Amara walked to the window and watched the city lights. 17 years ago, she had been erased quietly. Tonight, she had helped expose a machine that thrived on erasing others. And tomorrow, the world would wake up changed. But as Amara stood there, a final truth settled into her bones. Justice does not arrive all at once. It arrives in pieces. And the last piece was still missing, the one that would decide not just what she had survived, but what kind of future she would choose to build from it. The arrest happened quietly. No cameras, no dramatic chase. Victor Hale was taken from a private residence just before sunrise, his phone still in his hand, unread messages lighting the screen. Others followed within hours. Some resisted, some collapsed, some tried to bargain. By the end of the day, indictments were unsealed. Conspiracy, fraud, child exploitation, identity erasure. The words felt heavy, but real. For the first time, the system that had hidden behind paperwork was forced into daylight. Amara did not watch the news. She stood instead in the small conference room of the Amara Trust, surrounded by case files, maps, and handwritten notes. Each one represented a life that had been bent, delayed, or almost lost. Daniel entered quietly. "It's done," he said. "The trust fund is fully secured. Court oversight approved. The foundations are protected from outside control." Amara nodded slowly. "And the children?" she asked. Daniel smiled faintly. "More than we expected. Records are opening. Families are finding answers." Amara closed her eyes. 17 years of silence were finally breaking. A conversation long overdue. That evening, Amara sat with Harrison on the back porch as the sun dipped below the trees. "You never asked me about the money," Harrison said quietly. Amara smiled a little. "I know it's there," she replied. "That's enough." Harrison studied her. "I used to believe money could fix anything," he admitted. "I built walls with it. Distance. Silence." He looked at her, his voice unsteady. "I lost my son because I was busy building an empire. I almost lost you because I trusted systems more than people." Amara listened, her expression gentle. "I didn't need a billionaire grandfather," she said. "I needed someone who came looking." Harrison nodded, tears in his eyes. "I'm here now," he said. "Yes," Amara replied. "You are a father, not a ghost." Marcus joined them later, holding 2 cups of tea. "I'm staying," he said simply. "No more running. No more hiding." Amara looked up at him. "You don't owe me a perfect past," she said. "Just an honest future." Marcus smiled through tears. "Then that's what I'll give you." They sat together in silence, not awkward, not heavy, just real. The life she chose. Months passed. Quietly, intentionally, Amara returned to school on her own terms. She volunteered without cameras. She learned how to laugh without flinching, how to rest without guilt. The Amara Trust grew not fast but strong. Lawyers reunited families. Investigators reopened cold cases. Children received names back. Histories were rewritten, properly this time. One afternoon, Amara stood in a modest community center, watching a young girl color at a table. The girl looked up. "Do you live here?" she asked. Amara smiled. "No," she said, "but I understand this place." The girl nodded, satisfied, and went back to coloring. Amara felt something settle inside her. Peace. Not the kind that comes from forgetting. The kind that comes from facing everything and choosing what to carry forward. The final question answered. Late one night, Amara opened the original trust document, the one created the day she was born. $5 million. A future waiting for a child who had nearly been erased. She signed her name at the bottom, not to claim it for herself, but to redirect it. Education, protection, truth. She wrote a short note to be sealed with the document. This money existed because someone believed I would be found. I was. Now let it help find others. She closed the folder and set it aside. Outside, the city slept. Inside, a girl who once asked, "Why didn't anyone come sooner?" finally knew the answer. Someone did come. And when they did, she chose not just to reclaim what was stolen from her, but to make sure no child ever had to ask that question again.